Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Insulation Intel webinar, Johns Manville's HVAC Insulation Products. My name is Kim Melton, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's presentation. But before we dive into introductions, I do want to go over a few logistics. First and foremost, this webinar is going to be solely focused on JM's insulation, HVAC insulation product portfolio. The reason we do this webinar is to actually meet a number of the needs and requests we get from our attendees of our webinars throughout the year. They always want to know about what products are available, what new products are on the market. And so this is a great webinar for anybody who's looking to learn more about materials that are available to the industry, get their feet wet about HVAC insulation products, and specifically learn about Johns Manville's portfolio. We are working from home today, so if we run into any technical difficulties that are disruptive to the presentation, we'll pause for up to 5 minutes to see if we can address those difficulties. If we're not able to find a solution in that amount of time, we'll cancel the presentation today and either send out a recording or reschedule for a future date, depending on where you're at in the presentation. Also, we're going to conclude today's webinar with a live Q&A, so you can submit your questions to us at any point throughout the presentation, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. Now, you should see a Q&A on the right side of your screen. If you don't see that, in the very bottom right-hand corner is a little ellipsis. If you click on that, it's going to open up an icon that says Q&A with a box with a question mark in it. If you click on that, it'll open a dialog box to the right side of your screen that you can use to submit questions. So today's webinar is for educational purposes only and shouldn't be used as a substitution for professional engineering design, documentation, or any building codes or contracts that require it or applicable laws. So please refer to our specific manufacturer's application guidelines online, and you can find those on our website. Also, we're going to follow today's webinar with a survey, and this is your opportunity to provide us with feedback on how we've done today. You can use a survey to ask any additional questions. You can even use it to ask for a follow-up if you want somebody to contact you about future webinars, about a lunch and learn, or about any additional information you might want pertaining to the topic at hand today. This survey is also part of how we deliver the JM experience to you. And if you look in the bottom left corner of your screen, you'll see people, passion, perform, and protect. And those are 4 core values that we live here at JM. And it's important to us to make sure that we are living those values and providing the best JM experience to our customers. And so that means that we want to make sure that we are providing the information that has the most use to you. And we learn about whether or not we're hitting that goal through this survey. So I'd definitely encourage you to fill that out. And we will follow today's presentation with a certificate of completion that'll be delivered to you at by next week. And then we also will have a recording of the webinar. We don't actually send out the webinar itself, but we do post a recording of it online that we'll send you access to. This allows you to have it within its full context and share it with any colleagues who might find it interesting. So joining me today are Brennan Hall and Riley Peters, and I'm going to turn it over to them for some introductions. Brennan, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure, thanks, Kim. So my name is Brennan Hall. I am the Senior HVAC Product Manager here at Johns Manville. I'm coming up on 6 years with JM. I've been in the HVAC industry for 12. I do a lot of different things relative to the industry. I'm on the Spiral Duct Manufacturers Board of Directors. I am our representative on the NAMA, North American Insulation Manufacturers Association Air Handling Council. We are a SMACNA Premier Partner, the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning National Association, and I am our liaison through that organization, and also sit on the Associate Member Committee.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Riley Peters. I've been with JM for about 2 years now, in the product management role for about 1. I've focused most of my time on our light density products, that being Flex Glass and Duct Wrap. I've also been involved with ADC as an associate member. And for those of you unaware, ADC, or the Air Duct Council, is mostly a Flex Glass oriented council. So that's something that I've been working on in my time with JM. To kind of start out today, we do want to at least give you an agenda as to what we'll be going through. The framework of HVAC systems and how HVAC insulation plays a role in delivering conditioned air to occupied spaces. Then we'll take a look at some of the HVAC product portfolio, standard offerings and what we bring to the table in terms of providing offerings to you into the market. And then we'll look at some of the new products that we've developed really over the last half decade. And then finally, towards the end, Kim will finish us off with some of the great resources that we have available to you to find the best solutions for your job. All right, so starting out with the framework. So to set the stage for today's webinar, I think it's important to understand how an HVAC system works. Really starting with the diagram on the right, looking at B, so that's the central heating and cooling equipment. That is where air is drawn through. And then looking towards A, that's essentially where the central equipment is drawn in and then mixed with previously circulated air. And so at this point, the air conditioning or the conditioned air is actually distributed through supply ducts in occupied spaces. That's labeled as C on this diagram. And then finally, looking at a diagram B, that's the return ductwork. So that pulls in stale air. That's drawn back into the central equipment where it is conditioned and recirculated. So all parts of the system can be insulated, and making sure the right insulation for you in your application is very important. And then as we look towards how do we select the right material or the right solutions for our job, and that really depends on what kind of criteria you're looking for. So when designing a duct system, I think it's critical to understand the different criteria that it might be required of you depending on the job. So this diagram really shows 8 common needs that insulation is typically used for. I'll just briefly touch on 3 different ones here. 3 of the most common ones that we see. Far and away, the first one is thermal, or the energy conservation. So essentially what that's asking is, does this have the right R value for my job? Continuing on, acoustics or noise control is something that we see a big need for. And then finally, condensation control. So particularly in climates where there's more extreme temperatures, which we're trying to avoid some of that duct sweating or drip that you might see. And then getting into the solutions themselves, or our standard offerings. Here are the 4 types of HVAC insulation solutions that we currently offer at JM. The 2 across the top are really what we consider to be light density. Starting with the one on the left here is Duct Wrap, and it really is as it sounds. It's used to wrap around a duct and provide insulation or insulation properties to the outside of a duct system. Moving over to the right, looking at flexible duct, or flex glass as we call it. We really only produce the blanket here. Flex manufacturers take it from us, put an inner and outer core on the blanket of insulation, and then ship it out that way. And then looking at Duct Liner here. So the way I see it is it's kind of an inverse of Duct Wrap, right? Liner is applied to the inside or the airstream side of the duct. And then Duct Board. So Duct Board really essentially acts as a duct itself. So it allows air to flow through it, but it also provides the external insulating protection that you'd expect from fiberglass insulation. So this is just kind of a brief overview of what we offer. We'll be getting more into each one of these as we go forward. First and foremost, external duct insulation. So we consider this, or we call this internally at least, Duct Wrap, and it's more commonly referred to that out in the field as well. This is really ideal for thermal control and energy efficiency. I know Duct Wrap also does a great job of controlling condensation thanks to the factory applied FSK vapor barrier, and that, as I mentioned before, kind of helps prevent some of that sweat or drip that you might see. One thing I should mention is Duct Wrap is on the exterior of a duct, so it has little to no acoustical or noise reduction properties, but again, it does a great job with thermals and condensation control, and that's really its main use. Duct Wrap also does come in a varying thicknesses and different densities to achieve different R values, and we'll get into some of that here in more detail. So we have 3 different types of offerings when it comes to Duct Wrap or external duct insulation. Far and away, the most common is the Microlite FSK, the one on the furthest left here. So this includes a thin foil scrim facing as a barrier or vapor barrier. The product is offered typically in a roll, usually 48 inches wide, 3 different densities, 5 different thicknesses. So that really results in 5 different R values. I know I've mentioned R value a couple times now, but really what that is, for those of you unaware, is R value is a way of measuring resistance to heat flow. The higher the R value, the more insulating power that it has. You'll notice that we've bolded in blue here the recently added R19. So some projects that we're seeing in particular areas of the country are calling for R19. So this is something that we're pretty excited about and that we rolled out towards the end of 2020. And I know Brennan's going to kind of take you through some of that project or some of the newer project towards the end of the presentation here. Moving to the right, so we do offer white and black PSK. This is essentially a solution for any of the, or I guess an aesthetical solution for jobs that may require something that's different from our normal FSK facing. White so far has really been the most popular, but black, a lot of times we see that used in an open concept office space, kind of where everything else is painted black, where we can put the black duct wrap up there and people rarely notice or don't, and it doesn't stick out like a FSK facing would. And then moving even further right, Microlite Standard. So this is really our utility type product. This comes either unfaced or in a vinyl facing. We can use this in custom applications. That's typically where we see it. So kind of a low runner there and our least common one, but something that we do offer. All right, and then looking at the installation of duct wrap. So let's start with the photo on the right. This is really our basic microlite. You can see the foil facing and then the additional couple inches as a staple flap. So the photo on the left is now of a couple gentlemen that are installing the product itself. And so when you are installing, there's a few things to keep in mind as it relates to duct wrap. So first, the duct should be clean, dry, tightly sealed at all joints. Another part is the installed R value is based on the installation of the wrap over the ductwork with the average installed thickness of 75% of nominal thickness. So that's kind of a lot, but what that means is there's no more than 25% compression of the fiberglass upon installation to maintain the desired insulating power. So as far as cutting duct wrap, stretch out dimensions are included on our product data sheet, as well as there's a chart included on the packaging itself of JM Microlite Duct Wrap. These can be great resources to help you determine kind of what lengths to cut at, what lengths you might need for your particular project. It goes without saying, but I'll say it. Duct wrap should always be installed with the facing on the outside and should tightly seam together, whereas the staple flap is completely covering the facing of the insulation on the next section. Furthermore, so rectangular and square ducts should be installed. It should not have excessive compression on the corners. That can lead to some of that less powerful or less insulating power of the JM duct wrap. Again, that's that 25% compression that we're shooting for. So as we look at some of the questions that we get a lot of times on duct wrap, the first one that we probably hear the most is can I paint duct wrap? And how we typically answer that is we don't advise it, right? So duct wrap has a flame spread rating of 25 or less. The smoke developed rating is also 50 or less. So the performance characteristics of duct wrap or JM Microlite duct wrap is expected to maintain the constant for the entire life cycle of that product. JM's duct wrap product has not been evaluated with any paint coating on the facing, and if you were to paint it, it would void the UL rating received by JM for this product. However, there may be paints that maintain a 25-50 rating, but if you do decide to go this route, we do advise that you contact your local code department as well as the fire marshal before you go ahead with doing something like this. Next question here is what kind of staples should I use for my job? So we do recommend an outward clinching staple, as we do see the inward staples and straight staples tend to go right through the FSK facing and don't hold as well as we've seen with the outward clinching staples. So Last question here is pinning required, or do I need to adhere the fiberglass to the ductwork? So for insulation on the undersides of ducts, ducts spanning further than 24 inches, we do advise that these be secured with mechanical fasteners or speed clips, spaced, about 18 inches apart from the last staple. So when making penetrations, it's important to keep in mind that we will need to have these pins sealed with pressure adhesive tape. As you kind of saw with the last picture in the last slide, as they were taping over some of those areas where they pinned the FSK, or they pinned the duct wrap to the duct itself. All right, moving on now from duct wrap to flexible duct. So we won't spend too much time here, but it is worth pointing out some of the great offerings that we do have around flexible glass. So similar in appearance to duct wrap, flex duct products offer a few different built-in advantages. One around noise reduction, and then, as you can probably imagine, the added flexibility that this provides. Of course, while still providing thermal protection as well as energy conservation. Flex glass has increasingly become more popular over the last couple of decades and is strongly tied to new construction, single-family residential housing. So we do see a lot of demand and a lot of recent demand for this product. Kind of getting into more of the specifics here. We don't offer flex glass as a finished good from JM, but we do produce the insulation component of this product. We ship the insulation rolls to flex manufacturers, and then essentially they apply an interior and exterior core to our insulation blanket. So typically this comes in 25-foot sections, is compressed all the way down to about 2.5 to 3 feet, and rolled up into a bag. So the exterior sleeve acts as a vapor barrier, much like it does in our duct wrap product. And then the interior core actually provides an airstream for conditioned air to flow through. And that's sturdied by a reinforcement wire. So it's a little bit difficult to see in this picture, but there is a spiral reinforcement wire within that airstream on flexible duct. So flex duct is formaldehyde free, at least JM's offering for flex duct is formaldehyde free, green guard gold, and offers 3 different R values. There is way too many to list here, but we do offer this pretty much in 12 different widths by R value. So there is a lot of different diameters that you can get to that you might need to put on whatever your job might require. And then some of the questions that we do field around flexible duct. So when is the right time to use insulated flexible duct? So there's a couple different scenarios that we might want to go this route. First and most common is in a residential setting, typically used in an attic to connect an HVAC system to an air distribution system within a building. So this can be found in light commercial settings as well. And sometimes we do see it in multifamily applications as well. So the big part is it's used to connect an HVAC system to an air distribution system. And then finally, where can I purchase flexible duct with Johns Manville Insulation inside? We do partner with 2 duct wrap flex duct manufacturers, Quiet Flex as well as Hart and Cooley. Both are great partners to us. We highly recommend working with either of them to service your flex duct needs. And feel free, after this presentation, to reach out to me if you'd like, and I can get you in touch with the right people from either organization. So I'm going to turn this back over to Brennan. He's going to talk a little bit more and get us started on Duct Liner.
Sure, thanks, Riley. I'm going to talk today about Duct Liner insulation and some of our other things that we have here in the portfolio products. Very excited to go through this with you guys today. So Duct Liner is an insulation solution that is really used on the inside of the duct itself. It predominantly is used for acoustical control. That's the main reason why you would put duct liner inside of a duct, but it also offers some thermal and energy efficiency properties as well. One of the things that's really interesting about our Johns Manville products is we also have a proprietary permacoat acrylic coating that we put on our Airstream surface of our Line Acoustic RC or our Spire Acoustic Plus products, for example. And that permacoat coating, in our opinion, is very important. It provides water repellency. It inhibits antimicrobial growth. It also helps with the durability of the product in the harsh shop environment. When you're making ductwork and you got a lot of sharp edges, that protective coating really does a nice job of keeping that Airstream surface from being damaged or torn for any reason. So we're going to get into some of our rectangular duct liner offerings here, and we offer really 4 types of options for liner for rectangular duct options, and I'll go through the spiral offering after this. The kind of looking through this chart, our Line Acoustic RC and our Line Acoustic RC HP, as well as our Linatex products, those are all products that come in rolls, whereas our R300 product is a rigid board product that's used for plenum type applications. It's typically in a 4x8 sheet. So let's kind of go through each one of these products, and I'll go a little bit in depth, a little bit more about each one. So starting on the left-hand side is our Line Acoustic RC product. It's the workhorse product of our liner portfolio. It's the majority of what we sell out into the market. The product comes in a roll. Thicknesses range from 1/2 inch all the way up to 3 inches thick, and all of those thicknesses tie into an R value. So 1/2 inch being R22, 1 inch being R 4.2, inch and a half being R 6.3, and so on. So the thicknesses tie to the R value or the thermal needs that you need for the project. And our Line Acoustic RC product not only has our edges coated with our permacoat coating facing, but our Airstream surface, the part of the duct liner that's actually in contact with the air as it flows down the ductwork, also receives our permacoat coating product. The Line Acoustic RC HP product also is a rolled product or a rolled good. It comes in 1 inch thick, and really it's a density kind of driven specification need. It's our high performance product. So you use this when you're looking for a specification where you're looking for a little bit more acoustical value or a little bit more thermal value than what you might get with the standard RC product. Really, when somebody's looking for a 2-pound or 3-pound specification, this is a product that we can offer that really kind of helps meet that application. The R300 product is our rigid board product. It is a 3-pound board. It comes in thicknesses from 1 inch all the way up to 4 inches thick. Same thing, corresponding R values are 4.3 to 1 inch, R 6.3 with inch and a half, and so on. It has an Airstream surface coating on the Airstream side, the black coating that you see there in the image. And it's like I said, it's for plenums, it's for acoustical solutions. We see a lot of it in theaters or recording studios. We see people choose to put fabric over top of it to give it a different look or a different color. Anywhere where you might need a board instead of a rolled product is where you would utilize that. And then the last item on here is our Linatex product. It's a textile fiber product or a long, stringy, strandy fiber product. Textile liner is older technology. It was really kind of the evolution or beginning of duct liner in itself. Textile liner is density driven, so you need 1.5 pounds or 2 pound or 3 pound that corresponds with your thickness to get your R value that you're required to have. So depending upon if your code requires an R4, you may need a 2-pound liner at a 1 inch thickness. It just depends on what you're looking for. It's very specification driven still, and we still see it used in certain markets across the country, but it's just not a highly used or main driver of our liner portfolio currently. Rectangular duct liner installation. So duct liner comes in a lot of different widths and lengths and thicknesses, as you saw on the last slide. The various widths of liner really are there because they complement the sheet metal fabrication itself or the type of duct connection, whether it be a slip and drive or a TDC, that's being made at the transverse connection of the two duct sections. So NAMA, the North American Insulation Manufacturers Association, or SMACNA, the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning National Association, both publish and provide industry standards and guidelines for things like mechanical fastening, pinning, where nosings need to apply, glue application, all the things that go into the actual installation requirements and needs of putting in duct liner into the duct itself. So I'm going to draw your attention here to the top left-hand corner. This is towards the end of what would be an automated coil line. What you're seeing here across there is, I believe that's 5 pin spotters, maybe 6 pin spotters. But what this gentleman is doing is he's mechanically fastening the fiberglass liner to a piece of sheet metal. So those little dots that you can see are the weld pins themselves. That liner has come from the left-hand side it has been adhered to that sheet metal piece of sheet metal with some glue, and then as it comes down through, it gets that pin at a proper spacing required by the guidelines set forth by either SMACNA or NEMA. And then as you kind of come below that picture, you're seeing it in an L section. So once that is adhered and fastened to the piece of sheet metal, the liner will then in turn be broken or bent into an L section. And then those pieces can be stacked up and then taken to the job site where they are put together and formed into the duct itself. So that's, in a nutshell, really how rectangular duct installation is done with our products. So some frequently asked questions that we get relative to rectangular duct is one of the most common questions that we take at our technical hotline is duct liner density important? And it's funny because we see so many questions. It's very common. I've actually written a blog about this. There's lots of resources on jm.com that you can go and you can read the whole blog if you want, but kind of a shorthand version for you guys relative to this is really back in 1986, the Insulation Manufacturers and ASTM, which is the American Society for Testing and Material and Methods, recognized that all duct liners really aren't the same. So they tried to rectify that and basically said, hey, we're going to come up with this new duct liner selection criteria called ASTM C1071, which is the standard specification for fiberglass duct lining insulation. And with this new standard that came out in the 80s, it basically allowed you to select and specify by the physical attributes of the product, and density was no longer required as a requirement in the specification. So it was a performance-based specification, which really removed the guesswork from the selection of the duct liner in the system, that the engineer, the contractor, the building owner really gave you the freedom to focus on the comprehensive performance of the liner rather than the density itself. So you now can write a specification around acoustical performance or thermal performance or airstream erosion or surface burning characteristics that really don't tie or relate to anything relative to density. So, you know, you might be sitting there thinking, man, this was written in 1986. You know, why are people still asking about density? And it's really the simple truth is, as we've seen it, is a lot of specs just don't get updated. You know, there's challenging timelines at the engineering side. Projects tend to be really tight on schedules. You might just copy and paste something over, and the master specs don't get updated. We've done a lot of things with our sales team and our MDMs to try to get out there in the engineering community, things like these webinars, things like that, to try to help you engineering firms get your master specs updated. But the accuracy and updating of software and master specs at your firms, it sometimes just doesn't happen, and that's why we continuously see some of these density specs still come up out there in the market space. So lots of information on that you can find on our website. Is the permacoat coating important? I touched on it earlier, and in our opinion, it's very important. It not only provides water repellency, we have a actual specification it's the Indo water repellency test that's required to have a certain level of water repellency for the coating itself. So if you have incidental moisture contact, something that's spitting off the coil or something onto the liner itself, it'll bead up and sit there and allow itself to dry and not absorb into the product. It inhibits mold growth. It has antimicrobial properties to it. And really, it's just the durability of the product. It really makes a big difference in the shop. You saw those L sections stacked up, lots of sharp edges and things like that in a sheet metal fabrication shop. So the surface and the coating really does make a huge difference when you talk about our line acoustic RC products. And then I a lot of times get questions around how do we ensure quality control? How do we make sure our duct liner is very consistently, insulation thickness is consistent? And a couple things. It's really a two-part question answer. So one of the things that's really great about being the product manager or portfolio leader here on our liner products for JM is we're vertically integrated, which means we control almost every aspect of our product. Obviously, we make the fiberglass itself, but which you may or may not realize is we actually also make our facings, our matte facings for our products. We make our FSK facings. All of those things are done in-house. Our adhesives are made in-house. We have our permacoat coating, our proprietary coating there. So we have a lot of things that we do vertically integrated. We don't have to go out and purchase a lot of things from a third party. So if there's something that's going on, if there's a quality issue, if there's something that's wrong, me as a product manager having the ability to go back to our other divisions within our company and find those things or improve products as you guys ask for things to be done with them. I'm very flexible in the ability that we have to go up and down the chain with our vertically integrated supply chain on that. And then the second part of this is just consistent insulation thickness for our liner products. We have some older technology. It's called pot and marble that we utilize, where we flame attenuate our glass fibers. It is a very, very consistent, slow process that allows us to be very, very precise in the production of our thickness of our fiberglass. So it gets very, very good density distribution, and really is a great cuttability of the product is great. It's a very, very good product, and we do a really great job at our Cleveland, Texas facility of producing that product. So moving on to our spiral and kind of what I'd call our flat oval duct liner offerings. So we have several different options here. We'll start on the left-hand side and move right, and I'll go through them even more in depth on the next few slides. But our Spiracoustic Plus product is our single wall, meaning there's one layer of metal and then the fiberglass inside of it. It is a self-supporting product that we kerf in our Cleveland facility. It comes in 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and 2 inches thick. Those thicknesses tie into R value, just like on the rectangular side. And we have 4 different product configurations, or what we call them as kerf cuts. So we have really great naming nomenclature here at Johns Manville. We have VVSD, which is our very, very small diameter, our VSD, which is our very small diameter, our SD, which is small diameter, and our LD, which is large diameter. So it has a surface and edge coating. It's got the proprietary permacoat coating on it, and it slides into the duct. It's self-supporting up to certain diameters within the spiral pipe. It's very, very lightweight, and it's just a very, very nice solution if you're looking to line spiral pipe. The second item on here is our Spiral SG blanket insulation. It is used for double wall fiberglass spiral pipe applications. What you're going to see is it's a rotary type blanket. It comes in 1 inches all the way up to 4 inches thick. It can be 36 inches wide up to 72 inches wide. So lots of different options for that product to be utilized, and you can put it in a spiral pipe or double wall, whatever might be the application that you're needing or looking for is where you can actually utilize that. And then the last one, Riley had touched on it before relative to the microlite standard side. And what you're seeing is we see a lot of this product that actually we can make it in slit configurations, so 9-inch or 12-inch pre-slit widths. And what we see is people like to call it a candy cane, or they wrap it around the spiral pipe and spin the spiral pipe and candy cane that application and wrap it around there. So a lot of different uses when it comes to the microlite standard product, as Riley mentioned previously. So a little bit more on our Spiracoustic Plus product offering here. It is a single wall product, meaning there's one layer of metal. All of our cuts are factory kerf cuts done in our Cleveland, Texas facility. It is a board product, so it's got very consistent thickness and R value throughout. Great acoustical control, does a great job helping with condensation. It has the antimicrobial surface, and it's great options for really large diameter ducts. And then obviously our any stadium project that's out there, we tend to see a lot of those with the very, very giant diameter spiral pipe use our product because it's very lightweight. The other thing is, as I mentioned, is our naming nomenclature. Different cuts tie into the different sizes of spiral pipe that might be required to be utilized. So just whatever your application is what we would be using for that. So let's move on to Spiral SG. So looking at our Spiral SG offering, it is commonly used in double wall spiral duct. It is kind of an alternative to our single wall application. It is a tried and true method using double wall, meaning you have an inner core of metal wrapped in a blanket, then slid inside of a outer metal shell. So it's a little bit heavier. You got to make sure you put the spacers in. You got to make sure you're doing some of that properly, but it is a great product. Double wall spiral pipe has been around for a very, very long time, and it's a very, very nice solution that we have a product for. And you can use microlite standard in this very same application. So some common questions we get this a lot from customers when you're talking about Spiracoustic is the difference between the different cuts, our VVSD, VSD, SD, LD type cuts, and really what it ties to is what diameters of the spiral pipe that you're looking at. So at a 1 inch thickness, for example, our VVSD is used for 6-inch and 8-inch round applications. The VSD is used for 10-inch to 16-inch round applications. The SD is, I think, 18 to 30-inch applications. And then LD is anything 30 inches and above, like very, very large ducts. So those are the curves and the naming nomenclature that we utilize for that product. Another question that I get is, when do we use double wall versus single wall system? And to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. It's really up to you as a specifier or the contractor. Double wall is tried and true, been around a long time. We have also Spiroacoustic single wall product that's been around since the late 90s. Great solution. They both work great. They're both do exactly what you need them to do, and we have products and solution for both of them. So whatever is the right application for you, we have a product and a solution that can be utilized for it. So next, we're gonna shift gears here and go from Duct Liner, which is a very commercially heavy product, into Duct Board, which is a much more residentially focused product. So Duct Board insulation in itself here is a great product. It comes in a 4x10 or a 4x8 sheet that can be fabricated into the duct itself. You use special tools. It provides great thermal control, energy efficiency, acoustical control, and it is extremely very, very lightweight, which makes it great for residential spaces where you're kind of hauling the duct up there yourself into an attic, or high-rise type applications where you have to go up to several floors on the coast at a condo in Florida, for example. So lots of really great applications for Duct Board, especially on a residential side in particular. We have several different iterations and types of offerings when it comes to our Duct Board products, and we'll kind of go through each one of those right here. Starting on the left-hand side is our matte face micro air duct board, or we refer to it as MAD board internally here at JM. It comes in 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and 2 inch thicknesses. Those thicknesses tied to your R values. It has a fiberglass black mat, then the insulation, and then you have the foil reinforced scrimcraft on the backside, providing the condensation control. It is the workhorse product of the Duct Board portfolio. It is, the majority of the product that we actually sell that comes out of the product offering. So that's the product you're most commonly going to see from us out there in the market as it pertains to Duct Board. The next product is our Super Duct RC product. Same thing as Duct Board. It's 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, corresponds to the R value. The difference between the two products is Super Duct has our perma-coated acrylic coating on it. It has the same coating that we have on our Duct Liner products. It's on our Duct Board products. And where this product gets used, we see a lot of high-end residential houses looking for some of that moisture protection that might come off of incidental spitting off of a coil. We see it in light commercial applications. Sometimes we'll see it in like strip centers or shopping type things, like grocery store type building places, things like that. So that's where we see a lot of the Super Duct that goes out into the market space, some military applications as well. Our LP board is our low pressure board. It comes in 13/16 inch thick. LP board is a really interesting product. It is used for things like manufactured housing or buses, RVs, those type of applications where code doesn't necessarily come into play, but they need something within the bus to actually move the air and generate airflow to the rest of the occupied space in that vehicle. And then the last item is diffuser board, and diffuser board is exactly what it is. It's for diffusers. So if you're sitting at home or in an office somewhere, if you look up, you might see a diffuser in your office there. And when you look up there, you don't want to see anything but a black color, right? You don't want to see yellow sticking out there. So that black diffuser board goes inside of those registers and vents. It's comes in 1 inch and 1 3/8 inch thick, and really that's what it's for. It's for registers and diffusers. So that's our Duct Board portfolio of products. And then when you're talking about our micro air duct board, you're always going to hear about the shiplap, the male and female shiplap here. And the shiplaps themselves are on the left-hand side here. The female shiplap is kind of the ridge that you see where the shiplap drops down, and you can see it kind of come down there. And then the male shiplap is where the FSK facing comes out and kicks out. And really, once you form that sheet into a rectangular duct, that is where your transverse joint is going to kind of form together. So the two duct sections slide nicely together on top of one another, and you can staple that and tape that at that transverse joint on the ductwork. Our super duct, as I mentioned before, it has our permacoat coating on the airstream surface. That's what the arrow is pointing to. That dark black surface is the permacoat coating. We also have a layer of dye that goes into that on our last module, and then you have the fiberglass itself. So just a little bit of a close-up image for you guys around the super duct, and a little bit of a nice feature in that you can have that water repellency when it comes to a duct board product as well, same as our duct liner products. Duct board fabrication. So ductboard can be fabricated using some very specific tools. And the first picture I'm going to draw your attention to is in the upper right-hand corner. This is what's called a glass master machine. So if you look in that little channel there, you can kind of see those little tools that are kind of sitting in that little trough there. Those are the kniving system itself. What you would do is a guy would be standing on the near side of that machine, would feed the female end into that board. You'd move those blading configurations where you need to have your cut so that as it comes out the back side of that, you pull out those sections of fiberglass and you fold that section up and use it to create your duct itself. If we go over to the very, well, we'll come down to the bottom. The bottom picture underneath that is the hand tools. So Amcraft produces a different set of colored tools. So you have different colors that respond or tie into the type of cut that you're making, whether it be a 1 cut or a 2-4 cut or a 3 cut and so on. Different tools that go with that. And then if we come over to the left-hand side here, you can see the gentleman on the far left. He's pulling off that section of fiberglass and pulling out that section after it's been either grooved by a hand tool or the machine itself. And that pulls that out, and you can see how that's going to allow him to kind of flip that up perpendicular to where he's operating there and start forming that into a duct. And then in the gentleman on the picture just to his right, you can see him, he's brought that and formed that into a rectangular duct. He's used outward clenching staples to secure the seam. He is using a UL approved 181 tape, and he is squeegeeing that down to get a very, very good bond between that so it holds the system together and can be utilized as the duct itself. There's lots of great fabrication videos and installation information. YouTube through NEMA has a lot of great resources there. I think we have some things on our website as well, but there's lots of places if you go out there and look on the web for duct board fabrication where you can find lots of information on how to do that. Oops. Let's see. So some of the FAQs we get on duct board, one of the most common ones that we get, believe it or not, is actually what does type 475 and type 800 mean, or type 1400 when you're referencing duct board. And actually those values or those that information actually refers to the flexural rigidity, which is defined as the force required to bend a non-rigid structure. So it's basically the resistance of the structure while bending. So it refers to the stiffness per se. So the 475 and the 800, they actually tie into the duct's reinforcement schedule. So if you're running more of a commercial type application, not so much residential, but it actually tells you how often and at what spacing you actually have to put your reinforcing tie rods into that duct system itself, depending upon the system and application. How is ductboard packaged? We get that question quite a bit. It comes in cartons or in loose sheets on pallets. There's different numbers or amounts of sheets per package or per pallet. So we tend to see if you're looking at 1 inch, for example, you'll get 6 sheets in a carton. If you're looking at sheets on a pallet, you'll get 44 sheets on a pallet from us. And then what tape should I use? You want to make sure you're using a UL approved 181 tape. It's very integral to the to fiberglass duct construction. It needs pressure sensitive aluminum foil tape or a heat activated foil tape. You can use glass fabric and mastic as well, but they all have to be tested for compliance for structural and safety requirements. And really any supply house that you're out there that's selling ductboard is going to have the needed or required tape that you're going to be looking for the UL 181 rating. Coming into our accessory products, so not only do we have our fiberglass products, but we do offer some accessory items that kind of complement our offering. So we'll start up in the upper left-hand corner here, our Super Seal products. We have both an edge treatment and a high viscosity product. So the edge treatment product is a low viscosity, so very paint-like in the black can. That is for any cut fiberglass exposed edges where you can actually spray it or paint it on. It dries a very, very hard black. We see that used with Spire Acoustics, sometimes with our Duct Liner products. So that product is used there and available. In the white pail is our HV or high viscosity products. That's more like a very trowelable, thick gap replacement kind of thing. So if you've got a gouge or a gap in the insulation itself, that's where you would put that in, almost kind of drywallish in its nature, if you would kind of think of that. It's a little bit more liquidy than that, but that's kind of what it's for. It's for patching those systems. We have our Microlite white and black PSK seaming tapes. Those tapes obviously match up with our Duct Wrap offering. We have our white and black PSK. We have the same tape that matches the color, the scrim pattern, the whole 9 yards. You can buy them in small quantities from the distribution level, that you can get the tape along with your products from us for the installation itself. And then lastly, we have our duct knives. If you're going to buy fiberglass and you're going to install it, you're going to have to cut it. So we do have a knife that you can get that's available with our products. So the last product thing that I'm going to talk about here is some of our new JM products. And what you're seeing here is really the innovation and some of the things that we've done over the last 5 or 6 years within our portfolio. And we're very proud of the things that we've done. It's taken a lot of time and energy and effort to make sure that we started delivering products that were needed out there in the market to our customers, and things that engineers ask for and what our contractors ask for. And fiberglass has been very, very difficult to innovate in. It's a very old business. It's been around for a long time, and finding new and innovative things within the portfolio to do has been a challenge. But I feel like we've done a really great job over the last few years of getting some new items out there to the market. So I want to make sure some of the recent ones that we've had, I want to make sure you guys are aware of what we have in our new offerings of products that are out there on the market today. The first one, Riley touched on it earlier, is our Microlite Black PSK Duct Wrap. It's an aesthetic solution. It's a really, really sharp looking application for exposed ducts needs. What you're going to see here is, in this situation, instead of painting it, that wood that's up there is reclaimed wood from an old ship. They did not want to get it covered in paint. They didn't want to have to do drop tarps, things like that. So they utilized our black duct wrap, and you can see the result. It is an absolutely beautiful installation. It came really, really good. Came out really, really nice. So very, very excited about our black PSK, and we have the tape that matches that. Our R12 solutions. So we brought out some R12 products a couple years ago. There's a couple things here as it relates to R12. If you are in a jurisdiction, you're in climate zones 5, 6, 7, or 8, meaning if you're in this green band across the country going north, and you have adopted the 2015 IECC commercial code. It's not tied to residential. Do not get the two confused. It is a commercial code. But if you're in 5, 6, 7, and 8, you're in a jurisdiction that's adopted 2015 IECC, and not only that, but you're enforcing the 2015 IECC, which all over the country, it's really, sometimes county by county as far as what's being enforced. But we started to see some codes being enforced where if you were outside the building envelope, or if you were in a parking garage, or if you were in an attic above an insulated ceiling in like a light commercial building, think like a bank, we were seeing requests for R12 Duct Liner. The Denver airport had some parking garages where there was a need for R12 Duct Liner. That's where the first R12 Duct Liner was utilized. It's 3 inches thick. And as soon as we came out with our R12 liner, we were being asked and requested to have a R12 Duct Wrap, which is 4.4 inches thick. The first application actually for that was a dog kennel. So if you think about dog kennels and how they have indoor-outdoor kind of runs, they actually had some spiral pipe that went from inside out to the outside, and that outside space was considered outside the building envelope in that jurisdiction, and that's where they utilized that product. So these have been out there now, I think, since 2019. Or 2018, I don't have the exact date, but it's been the last couple of years. So we do have R12 insulation solutions. And what that did was that code really led us to a complete portfolio of R12 products. So we have our 800 series mechanical spin glass products. We have our Microlite Duct Wrap. We have our liner products. We have our rigid liner products. And we have a Expect polyiso foam board that can be utilized for rooftop duct applications. It has to be used on the outside of the building envelope. It doesn't pass that E84 2550 flame and smoke spread requirement that you need to be in the building envelope. But that product's all those products in that portfolio have kind of really rounded out our R12 offering. So if you're running into a need for R12 or a solution for R12, we have the ability to service that. The next thing is our E3 pallet technology. We launched this product, this option for our Duct Board products back in August. And really what it was we had a lot of feedback from contractors out in the field that, hey, I love using JM products. I love using your Duct Board, but I'm left with this 4x8 or 4x10 pallet that I can't use. The pallet scrappers won't take them. We can't do anything with them. We donate them for bonfires. They sit and they get destroyed, put into a landfill. So we re-engineered our pallet design, which basically allowed you to take the 4x8 pallet on the top, make a cut through the top and the bottom, and split it into two 48x48 dimensions, which are a very, I think that's the #1 common size for shipping pallets in the United States today. And our 4x10 pallets, we're allowed to be able to cut into 48x40 inch. You get 3 of them, making 2 cuts there, as you see in the diagram. And that allows you to basically separate those out into the second most common shipping size pallet in the United States. So giving the ability to be economical, efficient, and environmentally friendly, and that our pallets can be reused and repurposed by our customers and our contractors, and keep them out of the landfill if they so choose to, giving you some different options there with that E3 pallet technology. It's been a very cool solution and much needed, and we've had a lot of really positive feedback around the pallets that we've sent out to the market. The next thing is a product that we just launched here in October of 2020. It's our very small, or our VVSD Spiroacoustic Plus. The product is a 1-inch thick product only. We don't have it 1.5 inches or 2, but it allows you to basically put the product into a 6-inch or 8-inch diameter duct there on the far left side of the diagram. So really cool solution that can be utilized there for insulating very small diameter ducts. We recently got in October of 2020 our Green Guard certification at all thicknesses for our Line Acoustic RC and RCHP product lines. We're seeing a lot of trends around healthier environments and green building trends, needing LEED credits, things like that. So we were able to get all of our products on the liner side certified up to 3 inches thick with the Green Guard Gold. So we're very excited about that certification and what that's going to do to help our customers and our contractors, as well as our distribution partners out in the marketplaces. We continue to see the green building and those green trends emerge out there in the market space. And then the last item here that I'll talk about is our R16 and R19 Duct Wrap. We just launched this here back in January of 2021. And this is a very niche product, and it was designed to help meet our customers in the state of Washington with the 2018 Commercial Energy Code requirements that started popping up. The state of Washington has a very interesting code. It's not an international energy code. It's purely the state of Washington. But any commercial building where you have a fresh air intake, where the penetration of that fresh air duct from the louver all the way to the first damper was requiring to be or needing to be the same R value as the external of the building envelope. So it was requiring it to kind of match up to that. So there's a lot of different confusion on the code. R19 is 7 inches thick, R16 and 5 3/4 inch thick. But we've seen the majority of the demand so far for this R19 product, and they started enforcing this code out there in July of this year. So we're really excited to have this out there. It's been a great solution. We actually just launched that. There's a case study that's tied to it with one of our insulation contractors, DKB, out there in Washington, who does a great job, and a great JM partner out there. So please go by all means and check that out, and you'll learn a lot more about that product. So with that, I am going to turn this back over to Kim, and she is going to take us back home and finish this off.
All right, thank you so much, Brennan. So I do want to put a request to our audience members. If you have submitted a question in the chat, please resubmit that question in the Q&A feature so that it comes across our screen and we can see it. The chat is not visible to the presenters, so please do make sure you present it in the Q&A, or your question may not get asked. On that note, I do want to talk about some additional resources we have for for anybody who attended today. This webinar and all of our webinars are hosted, the recording of them are hosted on the source, and this is our online repository for all of our educational content. So this includes access to our latest blog, details about specifications, all of our recorded webinars, information and links to each of our products, relevant brochures, and then training as well. So it's a great resource for anybody who's looking for more information about HVAC materials, as well as we have one of these portals for our building insulation, mechanical insulation, and industrial insulation portfolios as well. Everybody who attended today will be getting a certificate of completion for attending. So that should be in your inbox. It'll be emailed to you next week. So please keep an eye out for it. If you don't receive it, please do contact us and we'll follow up with you directly. So with that, we're going to take it to our questions. The first question for you is, Brennan, and that is, what is the difference between line acoustic RC and line acoustic RC HP?
Sure. So RC and RCHP are HP stands for our high performance product. The RC is standard Duct Liner, standard product that we typically put out there in the market space. The RCHP is where we get we'll use that where somebody's looking for maybe a higher performance spec, or somebody's looking for a 2-pound or a 3-pound type thing. We make the RCHP with a little bit more density, so we add a little bit more glass into it, and it gives you some of those same product characteristics, whether it be acoustical NRC value or thermal, that you might get out of a 3-pound textile fiber product. It's just another option that allows us to meet those thermal and acoustical needs. So the biggest difference is there's just slight differences in the acoustical and the thermal performance, and a little bit of a variance in the density.
All right, thank you. Riley, the next question is for you, and is, why is painting insulation for interior design purposes not recommended?
The quick answer to that really is it voids the UL rating or warranty on our products. So we can't verify that that paint is going to adhere to the 2550 flame spread or flame rating. So that's at least the quick answer. I know people have done it in the past, and we do advise that you dot all your I's and cross all your T's in terms of checking with different code communities and making sure that you can do that within the application. But as far as what we recommend, it's not something that we would at least advise to you going forward. And then I guess on top of that, that's part of the reason that we do come out with white and black PSK products. So if the aesthetic that you want is white or black, that is something that we can provide to you now.
All right, thank you. Riley, the next question is also for you, and that is, does the aluminum foil in the duct wrap have a fire retardant?
Yes, it does. We make that in-house at our Hamilton, Virginia facility, and that does provide fire retardant properties as well.
All right, and Riley, can you repeat the section about pinning the duct, when you should do that, and specifically the spacing you mentioned?
Yes, so for insulation, really on the underside of ducts spanning 24 inches or more, I know we don't have the picture up right now, but that's a pretty good illustration of what we're looking at. So anything that's more than 2 feet does require us to secure with mechanical fasteners or speed clips about 18 inches apart. So yeah, anything that's longer than 2 feet would require a pin, and then obviously the tape to go over that as well.
All right, and thank you. And just for whoever asked that question, all of this information is available on our data sheet. So if you want to go to jam.com, you can download the data sheet, and that information should be located on there as well. The next question is for Brennan. I'm going to send it to you, and Riley, if you have anything to add, you can. How does the R19 duct wrap, how will the R19 duct wrap at 7 inches thick be applicable in a real world scenario?
Sure. I mean, it's very specific in what its application is for. We put it out there. DKB has done several jobs with it actually so far. The biggest thing that he kind of told us in his interview was just making sure you cut it into manageable sections, because it is very thick. But he installed it the very same way that you would do anything else with duct wrap and put it on there. I mean, most times if you're talking about a commercial building with a fresh air intake, you've got some space there to kind of operate and work within. Considerations are going to have to be made. It's very, very specific, tied to what's going on in the state of Washington. We're not seeing that requested anywhere else. But they put it on just as normal duct wrap. They wrapped it, taped it, stapled it, did the whole 9 yards with it, and they said that they had not had any issues with it, and everything was performing as they wanted to. So it is bulky, it is big. Installation goes pretty much standard and normal as how you would install duct wrap.
And on that note, there are application tips from the contractors who installed it available in our case study that we published with this product launch. That can also be found on the microlight section of the website. So if you do have any information about or any questions, I'm sorry, about the handling, that is a resource available to you if you would like to explore that. All right, the next question, Brennan, is for you, and that is with R300, what does it mean? What does the core type rotary mean?
Good question. I should have explained that. So when you're talking about fiberglass, rotary refers to the way that the glass is fiberized. So for lack of a better term, but everybody's going to be able to relate to it, rotary means kind of like cotton candy, right? You're dropping a stream of glass into a very high-speed spinner. It's going to rapidly cool itself and be sucked down onto a chain, and that is what is a rotary process there. So really, if you think about the process of making cotton candy, I don't like that reference, but that's what rotary means. It's very fine fibers or long stringy strandy fibers that you can utilize that make our light density products, whether it be Duct Wrap or Flex, or you just change out the size of the fiber diameter that you're using when you're making board products like Duct Board, and those become a much more coarser, kind of shorter fiber versus the long stranded fibers that you might see in Duct Wrap. So it's a very versatile technology, whereas we have a pot and marble technology that we utilize where we actually melt marbles, reheat them up, and we hit them and flame attenuate them and collect that fiberized glass onto a mat. So I'm sorry, I should have gone through that. That's my fault.
That's all right, Brennan. So I do realize it's 1 o'clock. We have quite a few questions left, so we will answer questions up to 15 minutes after, or if we get to the end of the question. So feel free to sit tight. These questions will also be available in the recording that we will send to you after this webinar is complete. So if you can't stay on to hear your question answered, you can listen to it on the recording. So the next question is for you also, Brennan, and that is, please give some examples of applications where R300 board is used.
Sure. So I know it's designed to be a plenum board, right? So if you're in a mechanical room or in a very large air handler where you need a board product to kind of be put up on the walls themselves, that's where we see a lot of it used. It can be used in a plenum itself if you wanted to use a rigid board product in an actual plenum or on the air conditioning unit itself. You can. We see a lot of it go into acoustical applications, like in a movie theater where they might cover it with a fabric and put it up on the wall. Recording studios use a lot of it. There's lots of different kind of applications where people are looking for a board product itself, something that's more rigid, that's durable, that they can kind of put up on the wall, that's not going to kind of flop off like a roll would. So it's pretty versatile in its nature, depending upon where you want to use it.
All right. The next question is for you, Riley, and that is your Duct Wrap charts did not talk about density. Can you talk a little bit about density for Duct Wrap?
Yeah, so the offerings that we have are, I guess it's type 75, so that's 3/4 pound. And then we go all the way up to 1.5 pounds. So we have 3/4 pound, 1 pound, and 1.5 pounds. So the most common is type 75 or 3/4 pound. Then we do offer the type 100 and type 150 in 1.5 and 2 inch. So there's 2 offerings for each of the type 150 and type 100. But a lot of what we see ordered and placed out there in the market is around type 75 or 3/4 inch. So that's where we have the 5 different offerings in terms of thicknesses and R values.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Brennan, the next question is for you, and that is there a 1-inch thick duct liner that offers an R6 insulating value, or must you use 1.5 inches to achieve an R6?
Good question. There is not a fiberglass duct liner at 1 inch thick that gives you an R6. If I wish there was, just the pure basis of fiberglass and the way that it works, and how it's made and how you produce it, the actual physical properties of fiberglass, it doesn't allow you to get there. If we had a way to actually do that, because it obviously would save a lot of space, I would love to be able to offer a solution for that. At this time, fiberglass and just the nature of the product and how it gets made, it doesn't allow itself to give you a much better R value than what we get at 1 inch thick. So I wish I did. If I knew how to do it, I would, but we just don't have a solution for that right now.
All right, thank you. I'm actually going to take the next question, and that is there any concern about fiberglass entering the airstream from your products? So we actually have an entire webinar based on this topic alone, and so I would encourage you to go watch that, but the short answer is no. Our products are very rigorously tested to meet UL standards, and so in order to receive this UL certification that we do, our duct liner has to be exposed to hurricane force winds without showing any signs of erosion, delamination, cracking, breaking, or flaking off. So I strongly encourage you to visit the source, that webpage I mentioned earlier, and you can actually watch an entire webinar about fiberglass health and safety and the rigorous testing that our products have undergone. Brennan, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, the webinar is a very, very good webinar on our health and safety fiberglass stuff. And just I would just add, Kim, that fiberglass is probably the single most tested building product in the building industry. It's been tested hundreds of thousands and thousands of times. So it has gone through the rigors of testing, and really great information in that webinar. If you have not listened to it, I would recommend going and seeing it if you have concerns around fibers.
All right, thank you. Brennan, the next question is for you, and that is, can you repeat what the difference is between type 475 and type 800 duct board is?
Sure. So what 475 and 800 refer to, they refer to the flexural rigidity of the product. And what that is it's the force required to bend a non-rigid structure. So it's that resistance of the structure while bending. So it really refers to the stiffness of the product. So and what that stiffness refers to is if now today most ductboard is put into a residential application where you're not going to see really excessive pressures put on that. 25, 30 years ago, when ductboard was more prevalent and was being used in a lot of commercial applications, there was a need for reinforcement schedules and tie rods and reinforcing it to hold that ductboard together, because it is the duct, when you get into large commercial situations where you're pushing a lot of air through that duct system itself. So you need that reinforcement to keep the duct from expanding and ballooning and things like that. So that flexural rigidity rating really ties itself back into that reinforcement schedule. It's really not very common anymore because we don't see ductboard used in a lot of commercial applications, but it just tells you and ties into where the tie rod spacing needs to be based on the rigidity of the product and the strength of that product. We actually used to, I believe, I want to say it was 15 years ago, that the reinforcement schedule used to be printed on all of the cartons of ductboard. I think we did it as well as our competitors used to, and it really just has trended away because you're just not pushing that much airflow through a duct in a residential system, which is where the majority of that application is. So that's really what it ties to, is the strength and the stiffness of that board and where you have to put your reinforcement schedule in.
All right, thanks, Brennan. The next question is also for you, and that is, do all of these products need to be removed and replaced if the insulation gets wet or if it grows mold? And what procedures do you recommend for addressing this?
Great question. If the fiberglass gets wet, or if it has mold, it needs to be taken out. You need to replace it. You gotta keep the fiberglass during transport, during installation, during storage, during fabrication. It really, really, really needs to stay dry. Once you get fiberglass wet, it has antimicrobial properties to it, but if you have the right conditions, mold's going to grow on pretty much everything. So you know, no matter what you do, if you get it wet, it's also going to compromise your insulation, the properties and the thermals of it. So if you get it wet, you need to make sure you don't put it in. You need to make sure you don't install it in those scenarios. You really need to replace it if it gets wet. Fiberglass and water don't mix very well for most applications.
All right, thank you, Brennan. The next question, I don't know if we'd have an answer for this, but I'll pose it to both of you. And Brennan, you can kick us off. Riley, if you know, please chime in. We need a source for the blades on an old glass master grooving machine. Do you have any recommendations?
I can take that. So it's Glassmaster used to be the manufacturer of all the machines and equipment. They were sold, I want to say it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was sold to a Certainteed Machine Works. So Certainty is a competitor of ours, and they have a machine division, and they bought the assets and acquired the assets for the Glassmaster equipment, all of the specifications, the tooling, and everything like that. So calling Certainty Machine Works, I believe even if you go to glassmaster.com or Google search Glassmaster, it still will pop up on there. But that's where all of the blades are being sourced through that division of Certainty, and they have access and can get you all the tooling and blading and things that you need. They do a really nice job of it, and they've done a really nice service to the industry as well.
All right, thank you, Brennan. Another question is, are we able to rewatch this presentation or even take it to our customer? The answer is absolutely. We will have a recording of this presentation available online, and as soon as it is available, we'll send you an email. You are welcome to forward a link to the presentation to anybody you would like to have watch it. The next question is for you, Brennan, and that is, what tape do you recommend using on the exterior of fabricated duct board fittings?
Tape on the exterior. So okay, so on duct board, because duct board is getting formed into the duct itself, you have to use a UL 181 approved tape, whether that be pressure sensitive, whether it be heat activated tape. You have to use a UL 181 rated product on all duct board, whether it be fittings or whether it be the duct board itself. That it needs to be squeegeed down. You got to get a very good barrier or adhesion joining of the tape in the board itself on the fiberglass, but you need to make sure you use that specific tape for duct board, or you will have major issues. That tape is made specifically to seal that system, because duct board can withstand quite a bit of airflow through the product. So you have to use the right tape. It's a UL 181 tape. There's lots of brands out there that make UL 181 rated tape. Any supply house, in particular across the southern half of the country where we see duct board very prevalent, anybody should have UL 181 tape for duct board.
I apologize, I was muted, everybody. Let me try that again. I'll take the next question as well, and that is, I saw that you have insulation products for copper tubing, and where can I get information about that? You can find all of the information about our mechanical insulating products on the mechanical section of our website. And if you want specific information about the materials that are available for mechanical applications like copper tubes, we have a webinar just like this one on all of our mechanical products, and that is available on the Mechanical Source. If you have any more questions, please let us know. We'd be happy to send you product-specific information for your application. So Brennan, the next question is for you, and that is, what adhesive do you recommend for your duct liner products?
Sure. So there's two different types of adhesive that's used out in the market. You have water-based glues, which I would say is probably 90% of the adhesive that's used out there to adhere duct liner to sheet metal. And then there's the other option is a solvent-based, which is a much more quick set, quick tack type thing. Lots of different manufacturers that are out there that produce both solvent and water-based. It just depends on, you have Design Polymerics, you have Hardcast, I think Duradyne. There's lots of Fosters. There's all kinds of different people that produce duct liner glue in both water and solvent-based applications. So either one, any brand, I don't really have one that I say, hey, you should use this one over that one, but there's lots of choices out there for duct liner adhesive out there.
All right, thank you. Riley, off to you, and then Brennan, you can chime in if Riley has any, if there's anything you'd add to that. And that is, do you have any recommendations for what types of duct cleaning are compatible with these products?
I'd probably go ahead and kick that over to Brennan. He probably has a better answer than I would on that one.
All right.
Thanks, Riley.
Anytime.
I would say, when it comes to, duct wrap, you're not going to clean it because it's not on the inside of the duct. The duct liner side and the duct board side, I believe there's NEMA guidelines that actually talk about and tell you how to clean the duct systems and the ducts themselves with the products on the inside. Usually you want, I believe it's like there's a brush system. It's a non-agitating brush. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there are standard protocols and procedures of how NEMA recommends that you clean fiberglass insulation. I'd have to look more info up on it, Kim, off the top of my head, but I that's about as much as I can give you without doing more research there.
I do know that if you Google duct cleaning, NEMA has an entire technical bulletin on it. So that's a great resource to recommend, Brennan. All right, we have time for about one more question. And Brennan, this one's going to go to you as well to wrap us up. And that is, when you're insulating accessories such as elbows, tees, etc., with Spiroacoustic, is it better to use the spray versus high viscosity for sealing the multiple seams?
You know, I think for me personally, I would probably use the HV product, because I'm assuming the way the question is being asked, because when you're making a spiral elbow, you've got multiple pieces that you're kind of fitting in that radius elbow or whatnot, and you're kind of pushing those together, and you may have some small gaps. I would use the HV product and fill those seams in and fill those gaps in with something that's a little bit more thicker and dense to close that gap in. The spray product is really for edges, right? So if you have an exposed edge where you're kind of cutting everything together, I mean, I guess depends on how you want to do it. Every fiberglass needs to be sealed, so you don't want any exposed fibers. So if anything is exposed on the edges, you would want to seal it with the sprayable or paintable kind of thing. If you have a gap where you're bringing the two sections together and you have a small gap where the insulation sections are trying to adjoin, that's where I would use the HV product and kind of trowel that in and fill those gaps in. So you could kind of use a combination of both. As you just want to make sure that the system is sealed and closed up, and it just depends on which way you want to take that question, I guess, Kim. But both work. One fills the gap, one seals the product itself on the edge.
All right, thank you, Brennan. So we are at 1:15. There are a variety of questions we were not able to get to today. If we didn't answer your question, we'll reach out to you directly to make sure that your question does get answered. And otherwise, thank you very much for attending today. We'll send you an email with your certificate of completion and another email with a link to this webinar once it's live online. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time every day, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.